We start with that age-old question, what is jazz? So we have quotes from Daniel Ray, AKA Big Black, and Teddy Adams here. And my favorite one is from Louis Armstrong on what is jazz. If you have to ask, you'll never know. So our next section of the Savannah Jazz History and Hall of Fame exhibit is called The Origins of Jazz. How did jazz start? It really has its roots in American blues and ragtime musical forms in the mid-1800s. And also, traditional African drumming is at the root of all jazz music. And then after the Civil War, a lot of the musicians, the war musicians, had nothing to do. So they started playing on their own outside of military bands. And so that was the beginning of early brass bands. Welcome to the West Broad Street scene of the early days of jazz in Savannah. West Broad Street, now known as Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, was once called the Harlem of the South. Simply everybody passed through who was anybody. There were over 70 venues along this corridor, and because there was no Highway 95, everyone going from the north to the south had to pass through Savannah. So at the same time that the West Broad scene was going on, there was another thing happening out on Tybee Island called Tybrisa then. You couldn't get there by car, but you sure could get there by the train. And at the Tybrisa Pavilion, everyone would go out there to hear the big bands. It was a big band swing dancing situation where Cab Calloway would play. Johnny Mercer was influenced to become the great lyricist that he was by attending all these great shows. And we have his Oscar here, and we have his Grammy, we have his Key to the City, and we have one of the typewriters where he wrote some of his best lyrics. Moving into the modern era of the Savannah Jazz History and Hall of Fame exhibit, our icon here is Ben Tucker, Savannah's legend. And we feature his longtime companion and mistress, Bertha. Bertha went everywhere with him. Bertha is an 18th century Tyrolean viola of mahogany, and we haven't touched her up too much because that might ruin part of her character, and she developed a lot of character with Ben Tucker. So the modern and contemporary scene for Savannah's jazz history is rooted in Ben Tucker and his relationship with Teddy Adams. They revived jazz in Savannah in the 1980s when jazz in Savannah, like everywhere else, died with the birth of rock and roll. We move along into the Savannah Jazz Festival. We have hosted so many greats, from Nancy Wilson to Stanley Turrentine, Chuck Leavell of the Rolling Stones, Wycliffe Gordon, and I mean so many, many more. We're entering the Savannah Jazz Hall of Fame section of the Savannah Jazz History exhibit, and we are featuring on display James Moody's very favorite horn that was graciously donated to us by his widow, Linda Moody, and also one of his most favorite hats and one of his favorite jackets. He was known for wearing his own branded clothing for his performances later in his career. And so he is one of the over 52 members of the Savannah Jazz Hall of Fame. And then we've got this really great kiosk that has all the biographical information of all 52 members of the Savannah Jazz Hall of Fame for all of those great jazz aficionados who want to learn more.